Let's take a look at today's jargon term because I think it's one that we're all going to find interesting and maybe a little contentious. So, we're talking about repetitive and restrictive behaviors. You know, if you watched Monday's show, we had a lot of technical difficulties, but we were talking about stereotypical behaviors. And this comes under the same heading, right? When we look at the definition of autism, the what the diagnosis is and what qualifies you for a diagnosis, included in that diagnosis is repetitive and restrictive behaviors. So let's take a look at what we're actually talking about. Let's see what we've got for an actual definition, shall we? Whoo, it's a long one and it's from the Journal of Neurodevelopmental Disorders. I'll bet it's good. Restricted repetitive behaviors, RRBs, are heterogeneous, ranging from stereotypic body movements to rituals to restricted interests. RRBs are most strongly associated with autism, but occur in a number of other clinical disorders as well as in typical development. You know what? I'm not even going to make fun of this definition because I appreciate the fact that it included that last line, that restricted and repetitive behaviors are also seen in typical development. Can we get that on a billboard somewhere? The problem is no one that we need to understand it would understand it. But let's take this and let's whittle this down just a little bit. So let's move on to our working definition, shall we? You might see repetitive and restrictive behaviors in yourself or in your child in a lot of different ways. And this is not an exhaustive list here, but these are some of the things that are pretty common, like lining toys up when someone takes and lines their cars up, or saying the same words or phrases over and over, requiring sameness, becoming agitated when something changes, etc. RRBs are thought to be a reaction to anxiety. And, you know, there might be some truth to that for some individuals, but I wouldn't say that it's across the board. So we will see that, and it is, as I said, part of the diagnosis that these things will be present in some way or another if the individual has qualified for an autism spectrum diagnosis, right? But again, lots of people do this and do not qualify for a diagnosis. I'm going to guess that if you're watching this show, there's something that you do that's repetitive or restrictive. Just ask yourself, what do you have a rule about? Oh my gosh. If I pull my husband in here and say, what are the kinds of things that make me crazy because Shannon has Shannon rules, right? Like, you know, you don't ever wear a pair of pants. I'm talking about even before COVID. You don't ever wear a pair of pants out into the world and sit someplace and then come home and sit on the bed in those pairs of pants. What? I have a rule about that. I can't hang with that. I lose my mind. I cannot deal. Everything shuts down. I like go whoop into a capsule and I cannot breathe. Right? So that's me. And I have about 7 million of those because I'm a little bit OCD, right? She said a little. Yeah. More than a little, maybe. But what do you have that's repetitive or restrictive? Everybody has something, right? Parker says, is eating only one food a restrictive behavior? Yes. If you only eat one class of food or you only eat one color or one texture, that's a restrictive behavior because you're not allowing yourself to do other things. It's not part of your rule structure. So, you know, if we all have this to some degree, what's the big deal here? And boy, that's going to set us up for today's interview, right? But here's the ticket here. Sometimes being restrictive means that you're incredibly passionate about something and very focused, right? And other times it can be something that gets in your way. If what you really want to do, for instance, is be in a wonderful romantic relationship with someone where you feel loved and they feel loved and you're happy, and yet you have a restrictive behavior that is preventing you from being in that relationship, well, now we're at loggerheads, right? What if you have a restrictive behavior, like let's just take Howie Mandel for a second, because here's somebody who's pretty much in the public eye. He's a comedian. He used to go out and do comedy clubs, and now, he's a television personality and he's on all these different things. He's out in the public all the time. And as a man who grew up during the time period that he grew up, it would have been expected that you go someplace and you shake somebody's hand. That was what the social norm was. And here's Howie, and he couldn't do it because it freaked him out too much. He can't touch other people's hands. He doesn't want to. It's too much of a germ thing for him. He's been incredibly open about that. So how did he figure out his life so that these two things could exist in the same place? How did he figure out, how do I do a talk show? How do I appear on the Letterman show and not come out and shake hands with David Letterman? So, and what he did was he sort of rewrote the script for himself and said, I'm going to fist bump and I'm going to tell people when I have to. And he was okay with the fist bump. Some people are not even okay with a fist bump, right? But he found a workaround for himself so that he could do what he wanted to do and still feel comfortable with it himself. Now, there's a whole list of things that you can do for repetitive and restrictive behaviors, but we shouldn't apply it carte blanche to anything or anyone. If First of all, we got to look at the behavior and think about what is the function of this behavior, because if it's a reaction to anxiety and you just try to take it away, guess what you're going to do? You're going to cause more anxiety. And if what you were really wanting to do is to be a caring individual to this person, causing anxiety, not going to be helpful. So first we want to look and say, is this something that is soothing anxiety? And if it is there something else that we can give this individual to do that's even more productive? Because, if you know OCD people, and I might know a few, you know what I'm saying? And maybe their thing is they got to touch the doorknob 5 times before they leave. And that's the only way that they can leave. And if you try to tell them, just don't do it, I'm going to make it so that you can't touch the doorknob. Oh, good luck. You're not going to have a good time, because they're certainly not going to have a good time, and they're going to need to come back to do it, because that's the nature of what a compulsion is, right? Instead, if you want to work on what is the feeling, why is that the safety net, and can we find you a better safety net and work through it, then it's possible the person finds something else that fulfills the need and they don't have to go back and touch it 5 times. There are other people who the compulsion will be too much. And there are people who benefit from being on medication that helps to quiet that part of the brain, right? We talked about that with Dr. Grampiche yesterday. But I think the thing that I want us all to realize and accept and love ourselves for is that everyone has some element of this. It is not all bad. And almost all of it is necessary to that person in the moment. So don't be yanking things away from people until you know what you're dealing with, and until you've given them something that works. Don't have an expectation that it's going to go away. Yes, Parker, I was just thinking about Big Bang Theory, that does that whole thing where he has to knock. Is it 3 times? I thought it was 5 times. And where he'll knock on the door and go, Penny, Penny, Penny. Maybe it is 3 times. And if she opens the door before he gets to the 3rd time, he still has to do the other 2 times because he just can't move on. Right? So we need to be compassionate. We need to be understanding. We need to be looking at how we deal with these things, how we overcome them, but we can't just be yanking things out, and we can't just label them as unnecessary. I think, that's the complete antithesis of what we just have been talking about. It always serves a purpose. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.